Welcome back to the Talk of the League podcast here on now the rebranded weekly Armchair Sports Talk channel. Talk of the League podcast is where we talk about all the Premier League teams, not just the big six, and especially not just Man United, which seems to dominate this channel, certainly. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about Aston Villa, we're going to talk about Everton, we're going to talk about Crystal Palace, and we're going to talk a little bit about Wolves as well. 4 teams who in the last 2 seasons have shown progress and obviously in Palace's case definitely taken a massive step back in the last 2 years, so be interesting to see where these teams go. It's not teams you're looking at that are going to be winning the league, but it's probably 4 teams that you should be looking at and going, right, they need to be consolidating and really building on for next season. So helping me do that today, we're joined by Everton fan Matt Smith, we're joined by Aston Villa fan Aston, and we're joined by Reece Russell as well, friend of the channel. Guys, how you doing?
Yeah, all good. Thanks for having us on.
No worries, no problem at all. Well, I'll start a little bit because it would be wrong for me to be Scottish and not mention it. In terms of the last week of football, Reece, you as well. Are you surprisingly like cheery and everything about football in the last week for some reason? Since Sunday night, you had a really a thing in your step and just.
Well, you know me, mate. I have got Italian family, so I am bouncing. I am bouncing. That isn't a joke for people that know me. It is a genuine fact. I was born in Scotland, but I do have Italian family, so I was bouncing from a particular event that I'm trying to remember what it was.
I'm sorry about coming home, but it didn't.
England lost.
That's it. That's it.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm absolutely buzzing, mate, and I've just been on a high because obviously I had the London Lowdown first time hosting it the other day.
Yeah,
bit an internet crash midway through, but it was, to my opinion, it was still a resounding success. First time ever hosting a show, and I thought it was absolutely great. And since then, I've just been on a high, really. So
thanks
for getting me on.
And no better way to sort of kick on that high than to look forward to club football coming back. I mean, international football is good, international tournaments are good, but Matt, coming to you, are you excited about the new season? Are you looking forward to it more from a football fan point of view rather than just sort of an Everton fan?
No, I'm not looking forward to it. The podcast that we do, the A Week of Football podcast, the last episode we did there, I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We said we'd take a break for the Euros just to kind of let that run its course, and then we'll come back about 2 or 3 weeks before the season. And so I think on the last episode, I do it with a Liverpool fan, Ed, and I was saying I'm looking forward to next season. Carlo Ancelotti's second year, give him another transfer window, and then now all of a sudden we have Rafa Benitez, and it's looking like we're getting a Jose Perez or something like that. So it's not exactly what. So no, I'm not really looking forward to it, to be honest. But listen, I suppose that's what we're here to talk about. So let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely come on to Everton, but we're going to start at Aston's team. Actually, we're going to start with Aston Villa. Now they've shown in the last 2 years probably the most progress of sort of any team. In the Premier League, they came up and they did things the right way when they came up this time. They didn't spend a load of money. They consolidated the squad that they had, built around Jack Grealish really well, and now they look like they're going to be aggressive further in the transfer market. They've obviously brought in Emi Buendia. It seems to be a never-ending pursuit of Emile Smith-Rowe as well. So Aston, coming to you, are you looking forward to the football restarting, especially from a Villa fan's point of view? Are you excited about sort of where your team's headed?
Yeah, I'm buzzing for a new season.
Good.
International football's all good and that, but for me personally, club football any day.
Yeah.
And then how we're progressing with our owners ambitious, we're still looking for big signings. I reckon we could really give a European go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It all depends on Grealish.
I was going to ask, do you think you will keep Jack Grealish?
I'm optimistic, but I don't know, if the money comes in, 100+ million, I'm not sure.
It's hard to turn down, isn't it? Especially as rich as the Villa owners are. 100 million's a lot of money, especially for a player of Jack Grealish. But Tony Secret says there in the chat that Buendia will prove to be a great signing. I think that's a brilliant signing for Villa. Like the fact they got that brilliant from underneath Arsenal's noses, wasn't it, in the end? That they managed to pip Arsenal to it. So you're looking forward to seeing Buendia in that Villa shirt then, Aston?
Yeah, definitely. He's been a signing. I think there's 29 goal involvements last year. Brilliant player.
Yeah,
And
no,
especially alongside Grealish, both commit men, leaving space free for each other. I think they could work well with up top.
yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, obviously, you mentioned it earlier on there that the owners are being ambitious as well. They're not sort of resting on their laurels and being really happy with where they finished. They clearly want to push this club forward, and it's one of the few teams in the league whose owners look like they're purely focused on the football side of things, and they really want to get Aston Villa back to where they should be, really, for a club of that size. For yourself, Aston, what do you think in terms of where Villa should look to strengthen in the next few weeks, especially leading into the end of the season? Where do you think the team needs a bit of either depth or just a bit of quality?
I think we need another attacking midfielder or winger to help Grealish or Smith Rowe, and then probably a holding midfielder. That's something where we lacked last year. We don't have really any physicality. Somebody like that in the middle. So sometimes Louise can be a bit lightweight. So.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Matt, come to you on Aston Villa. Obviously, I would put, when I think of sort of when I'm grouping teams together in this league, I always tend to put Aston Villa and Everton close to each other, sort of in the same sort of bracket. But from an Everton fan's perspective, how do you think Villa are going to get on, and are you impressed with sort of how they're been going about business?
Yeah, like they stayed up with the skin of their teeth 2 seasons ago, and everyone, when they did their Premier League predictions last year, they kind of had Villa probably finishing 15th, 16th, 17th with the players that they brought in.
Yeah,
but they've done really well at the start of the season, fell away kind of halfway through the year. I think the signing of the season last year for them was the keeper Martinez. He was unbelievable for Aston Villa. And I think if they can build, they have a strong back line with Target and Cash. The centre halves are solid enough as well. The keeper's solid. So, like Aston was saying there, I think if they got a bit of pace in midfield, I don't necessarily think they need any more wingers. I think Grealish is going to stay. I think Traore was a great signing for Villa as well. I think they got him in January last year, did they? I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it might have been there, but he's been very, very good for them. He's kind of one of those. He'll do nothing for 80 minutes and then score 2 goals out of nowhere. So I think I can see Grealish staying. To be honest with you, I just think the fact that he's the captain of the club, they're going in the right direction. If he can get Aston Villa into Europe, it'll be his dream. Or unless, I don't think he's that type of person where he wants to be on 400 grand a week at Man City and win the league. I think he'd rather do that with Aston Villa. And to be honest with you, if you look at the 2 teams, like you said, with Aston Villa are going like that, and Everton are just going down. Unfortunately. So although Everton have probably the same amount of money, if not more than Aston Villa, we just don't seem to have the same sort of scouting and recruiting as Aston Villa. So I can see Aston Villa being a solid top 10 team next year. I don't see them probably breaking into Europe as just yet. It depends on the recruitment, but I can see them being like solid top 10 anyway.
Yeah, and it's notoriously hard to break into Europe, especially in the Premier League. Like, to break that top 6, you've got to have a serious infrastructure there, and not only that, you've got to have the depth, the quality and the depth as well, which a lot of teams didn't have. Like we saw Arsenal drop out of it last season as well, and they're regularly a team that are recognised as that big 6. Reece, are you there? I don't know if Reece is there.
Yeah, I'm still here. It's just the Chromebook likes to flash. Like, it does a stupid flash thing on the camera. So just in case anybody reacts to it, I've just turned the camera off for a wee while.
No
but
problem.
I'm still here.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. From your perspective, Reece, what are you thinking about Villa sort of going into the upcoming season? Are you impressed by them? Do you think they should be doing a little bit more? What's your sort of opinions on it?
Well, so I think everything the comments have been made so far are pretty much spot on in terms of like Villa. They were lucky that a certain piece of machinery failed on the last day of the season 2 years ago. No disrespect to Aston, but I thought you were going down. You didn't convince me enough. But then I look at last season and there were some changes made there. The change in the system, probably the best thing Dean Smith has ever done, because I don't think the back 3 actually suited Aston Villa. Get them into a back 3 and they were much better. It gave more freedom to Jack Grealish on the left-hand side as well. I think the loan signing at the time of Ross Barkley was crucial. How they're going to replace him in midfield is going to be interesting, because they need a little bit of work there. but they've got a decent squad. In terms of where they need to improve, I think they need to improve at centre-back, because I don't trust Tyrone Mings personally, but that Konza is a special talent. I think he's going to be absolutely brilliant for them. I think Matty Target as well, Matt Cash as well, the fullbacks, they're impressive players as well. And obviously you got Martinez. So that's 4 out of 5 there as a strong core.
Yeah.
For a back 5, realistically, you get obviously your back 4 and your goalkeeper. Konza, I think, is going to be the main one going forward, but they need someone more reliable at centre-back to partner him next year if they want to hunt down the top 7.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think they need a backup striker as well to Ollie Watkins. I don't think particularly they have a good threat up front behind him, because I know he was fantastic last year, but the question is, will he kick on or will he be sort of the same? Could he have a second season? Could he have second season syndrome? There is a chance. I hope it doesn't happen, because I think he's such a fantastic young talent.
Yeah,
I agree with the Traore and Grealish comments. I agree with Matt. As much as I think Jack Grealish moving on seems likely, I don't know if he will. And if City obviously would be the one that you would expect him to go to, which would be absolutely terrible. But if Villa manage to keep a hold of Jack Grealish, then I think they will finish in the top 7. If they don't, maybe 10th, I don't know. But he is so important to them. But I've seen as well, which is a crazy statistic, when Jack Grealish went injured, their win rate went down by 86%.
Yeah.
That's not just a drop. That is a massive drop, and that's something you can't afford. And they're going to need something next year. But they've got a good squad. They just need to add, I think, only a couple of positions. Holding midfield, I agree. Douglas Luiz is a player I like, but they need something there as well. Central midfielder, defensive midfielder, centre back, and a backup striker. For me, just those 4. They don't need anything else, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, I pretty much agree. I think a defensive midfielder it should be quite high up on the priorities. I think, like what Aston said, a creative outlet in midfield as well to take some pressure off Grealish. And for your reason there as well, Rich, like Jack Grealish gets tackled, gets kicked a lot. Like he's he's the most foul player in the league. So he's going to be injured, and when he misses games, then they need someone to sort of take that creative burden and sort of help Ollie Watkins. No, they didn't sign him.
They didn't. I thought they did, because when I seen that he was linked to them, I was like, you know what, that does make sense, because obviously Jack Grealish last year, the amount of times he was fouled in the league, a player like Ward-Prowse would love that sort of thing.
See, I don't rate Ward-Prowse.
He has a set piece. He has a danger from set pieces, but that's about it. But to be fair, you can have players do the grunt work. He can just do that. Like he can do it at the corners, the free kicks. He can offer something in there. But I get what you mean. He isn't particularly a great player, but he offers them an extra threat.
No, he absolutely does. And obviously he wouldn't be playing at the level he would be playing at if he wasn't somewhat helpful. But I don't think he's what Villa need. I agree with Aston. A creative outlet, someone genuinely creative. I think Emile Smith-Rowe, if they could get that in, if they were just persistent with Arsenal, if they could get Smith-Rowe, he would be a fantastic signing, because he's going to be an absolute superstar. And that would really, I think that would maybe encourage Grealish as well to stay, is the fact that they're trying to bring in a young team that's young and exciting players. If you are in the comments, by the way, just now, put in where you think Villa are going to finish next season. I'll get them up on the screen to the guys. We'll do that for each of the teams that we talk about today. So put in the comments, where do you think Aston Villa will finish next season? Chelsea Fan TV says Grealish is key and I don't think any Villa fan, Aston, I think you'll agree that no Villa fan is going to think that if you were to lose Jack Grealish and not spend a significant amount of money back, that you're going to be sort of the same level of team that you were last year. So he's obviously so key to the team. But again, I agree what Matt says. Like I think he would. I think if you were to offer him, right, do you want to win the Champions League with Man City, or do you want to play in the Champions League with Aston Villa? Like he's going to take the one to play for his own team. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we don't hope. We hope he doesn't go to City. If they get Grealish and Kane, it's pretty much game over. Victoria's Secrets reckons Villa are going to finish 9th. I think that's a good shout. I think sort of 8th, 9th, and then sort of consolidating, like I said, build quality in the depth and things like that, and move forward from there. I reckon will be sorted.
There is one thing there that, because that obviously we're in the group chat about fight for the channel, and I'm actually going to link Grealish to a Man United situation in terms of like there's constant talk about Paul Pogba moving on. So I'm going to use this as an example, just a quick example. There's always talks about him moving on. But in terms of a Villa example, how could Villa honestly replace Jack Grealish? In terms of like a player of his quality, like he can play multiple positions, and how could they honestly replace him? Because he is so crucial to them in every aspect. And it's the same as Paul Pogba at Man United. How could we replace him? It's such a tough task for Villa. All due respect, if you lose Jack Grealish, there's no way you're going to replace a player like that. It's just not. It's not easy.
Harry Kane at Spurs.
Let's go get Harry Kane. Could you imagine?
The exact same. So it's exactly like Spurs are done if Harry Kane leaves. Like,
because it's everything, isn't he? Like Son's good, but Son's so hot and cold. Like he's like
Son is good with Kane.
Yeah, Kane's just that different level.
Yeah.
I asked him, what do you think of that? What do you think of this from Chelsea Fan TV? Would Villa take a goal scorer like Tammy Abraham, who was instrumental in their promotion charge and change formation, if it meant having to get rid of Grealish? So if you had to get rid of Grealish, would you take Tammy?
Yeah, if you had to get rid of Grealish, I'd definitely take Tammy, but I'm not sure if the pull power to bring Tammy would be still there if Grealish, because he'd want to be pushing for European football, and we ain't doing that without Jack Grealish.
No, very fair, very fair. And then Chelsea Fan TV also says maybe even Tammy and Barkley. Obviously, you got that link with Ross Barkley. I think Ross Barkley was better at the very start of the season last season. I think he dropped off near the end. And really, at the end, he was just sort of there, and he wasn't really bringing a lot. But there was certainly that first spell in the season where he was really helpful to Villa. But Tony's Secret says as well.
Barkley dropped off when Grealish got injured.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose they would, wouldn't they? Because like Grealish is so instrumental to that team. And I made the comment last year when sort of everyone was having a go that Man United only play well when Bruno plays and everything like that. It's like, well, of course they do, because when Bruno comes on for Man United, everyone kicks up a gear. Everyone gets the ball to him. Everyone's got that little extra 10% in their legs. And that's the same Villa. You saw that with Villa when Grealish comes on. You see it with England when Grealish comes on.
Yeah.
That suddenly the passing's crisper. They're trying to get the ball to him. There's movement in behind. There's spaces being created in the half spaces between the centre backs and the midfield, which don't seem to be there without him. So he is absolutely crucial.
So instrumental. That's what he's that instrument. He's that instrumental type players. Like you could be like 0-0 with like say 10, 15 minutes to go, and he's not having a particularly good game. And the next thing you know, he just kicks into life. There's players like that where people write them off so easily, like they're having a bad game, they're automatically a shit player. No, like good players turn up at the right moments. They're consistent where they can tear you apart, or they can be quiet and then hurt you in a way that you're like, where the hell has this guy been for like 90 minutes? Like, where the hell has he gone? And I'm like, well, he's been there. He's just been waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. The general consensus in the comments certainly seems to be that sort of Villa are going to finish sort of 8th, 9th, which is probably where I would probably put them as well. Like it would be if they get the Mo Smith role, they could push. But again, I don't think they've got the quality and the depth that the teams above them sort of have. Changing gear a little bit here, we're going to talk about Matt's team. We're going to talk a little bit about Everton. As Matt alluded to earlier on in the show, 4 weeks ago, everything looked rosy. You just finished your first season with Carlo Ancelotti. It was maybe not what you expected after the start that you had. Although Jordan Pickford did the Lord's work, so that's all we need. That's all we need from Everton that season. But it was interesting to say the least. The first season under Carlo, it started so brightly, and then it just seemed to tail off a little bit, and there wasn't a lot left. And you sense that coming into this summer, it was a big summer for Everton and for Carlo as well. And then 4 weeks on, as we say, he's gone to Real Madrid. In fairness, I don't think there's many Everton fans that can hold a grudge when Real Madrid come calling for your manager.
All Everton fans hold a serious grudge.
Really?
Trust me, yeah.
Really? Real Madrid,
anytime, Real Madrid, the team that tried to orchestrate a Super League. So Carlo was the one who was saying it's a joke and they should dock teams points and stuff like that. And then 2 weeks later, he goes and becomes their manager. So listen, it's actually really funny. Anytime Carlo puts up a post on Twitter, all the Everton fans go underneath it with snake comments and stuff like that. So listen, I think he came in. He didn't necessarily do anything fantastic. He got us a win at Anfield, and that's literally all he did. He didn't do anything really. He brought James Rodriguez to the club, and he brought Allen to the club, And now the two of them are probably sitting there saying, "What are we doing here?" So it's one of those where we have a player who's a major quality in James Rodriguez.
It's phenomenal. And even he's on. He's just
he's brilliant. But are we going to have a player now for a year that just doesn't want to be there? And if it's lash and rain away to Brentford, is he going to want to play? Like, do you know what I mean? So. And I think Alan's a different story. I think Alan will play for whoever. He'll just play for the shirt. I think
he's a workman, isn't he, Alan? He's sort of like that workman type midfielder, but he's also got he was so integral, I think, to that Everton team last year, especially with Doucouré. Like there was that first 8 weeks in the season or 7, they won the first 6 or 7 or something games.
Yeah.
Like that was where it was so crucial. And then obviously because they were doing all the hard defensive work, they were opening the ball up to get the ball to James, who was just showing his quality. I'm going to stick with you, Matt, actually. So we obviously know that Rafa Benitez is now the new manager. What were your initial feelings? Because obviously there was quite a lot of back and forth. Like Lampard was linked, Steven Gerrard was linked, which would have been hilarious. There was a lot of managers linked to the Everton job. Is Rafa the one, when his name was mentioned, were you jumping up and down like get him in?
To be honest with you, I think everyone was in a state of shock for about 2 or 3 weeks after Carlo left, and then all these names were getting thrown around. And when Conte left Inter Milan, everyone was saying, "Go get Conte." And I'm a realist Everton fan. I'm never going to sit here and say, why would Antonio Conte go from winning the Scudetto with Inter Milan and come and manage 10th place Everton? It's not going to happen. No matter what money we give him, no matter what happens. It looked like we were getting Nuno at one point. It looked like we were getting somebody else in as well, Galtier off Lille. And then the same question for him was, why would he go? He was I think he's had to go into Nice, and he's going to have the owner of Nice has major money, and he's friends with the owner of Nice, and he had a gentleman's agreement with them, so he's gone to them. But a lot of Everton fans I wouldn't say they're deluded, but they think we're a lot better than we are. We're a mid-table Premier League team, and we have been for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So even with Carlo Ancelotti there last year, the football was absolutely dreadful towards the end of the season. I mean,
at the start it started so well, and
we only won about, I'd say we played about seven games to start of the season.
Yeah.
Then the derby happened where Richarlison got sent off, Van Dijk got injured. Pickford's confidence took a bit of a knock. We went on a bad run. We lost 4 or 5 in a row, I think, at one stage. And then we had a great run at Christmas time, and then we got beaten by West Ham on the 1st of January, and it all went completely wrong after that. 4 or 5 months of absolutely dreadful football, and we got the win at Anfield, which I think was just the players were up for it that day. That was simply it. And then we got beaten at home by Fulham, beaten at home by Newcastle. Newcastle beat us twice last year. I think we lost to Sheffield United. We just got beaten at home by terrible teams like Aston Villa. But in fairness, it was in our hands with 6 or 7 games to go. We still had Champions League opportunity with 6 or 7 games to go, and we just threw it away. And last year was the year to get European football because, like you said, the likes of Arsenal, Spurs, they were all falling away. I know in fairness to Liverpool, they've done really well to get third with the season they had as well. So I think it went 3 or 4 weeks ago when Carlo was still around. I was kind of thinking that we had our transfer targets. We need a whole new right hand side. Our right hand side is absolutely dreadful. Now I'll not have a bad word to say about Seamus Coleman. He's been an absolutely fantastic servant to the club.
Yeah, but he's old now, isn't he?
I think he can still do a job, but he needs somebody there to help him out. And we just don't have that. We have a Iwobi on the right hand side. The year before that, we had Theo Walcott. They're not defensive players at all. So
they're not particularly good players either.
No, that's the problem.
To be fair, you've got Bernard on the left hand side. He's woeful.
Yeah, he's going as well. Yeah, so I think he's going to some team in Saudi Arabia.
I think it's just strange with everyone. I saw a description last season, actually maybe 2 seasons ago, whenever they brought in Iwobi, that Everton just have such big dick energy in the transfer market. They just go in. It's like you've been quoted 20 million for a player. Here's 40, and then you're like, but you don't have to pay. For me, what they spent on Iwobi was ludicrous. That is a lot of money for Alex Iwobi, and it just seems to be they're sort of where Man United were under Mourinho, but all the time, where there's no set type of signing they want. They just want different decent players that just sort of fit in and can fill gaps, but there doesn't seem to be like a vision. Whereas like you look at Villa, I feel like there's a vision there in the terms you can see the type of players that Dean Smith wants to come in. And you can see sort of with other teams around, you can see some semblance of it with Arsenal. You can definitely see it with Leicester. You're starting to see it at Man United now as well. And I just feel like with Everton, it doesn't ever feel like I don't think if I was to sit in the room of Everton fans and they were to tell me what's the vision and what signs you're going to bring in, I feel like I would get 10 different answers from 10 different people.
Oh yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's happening at the moment. Like Rafa's the manager. I think, in fairness, we're very, very strongly linked with Dumfries off Holland, PSV player. Good signing, and it's exactly what we need. And to be honest with you, if you played him as a wing back, like in a back five, he'd be unbelievable up that right hand side. And that could nearly be two birds with one stone. If we are kind of struggling with the whole right hand side, at least we have Dumfries up the right hand side. But we other than that, we're not strongly linked with anybody. Last year was probably our best year in the transfer market when it comes to bringing in Ben Godfrey, who was brilliant for us. Alan was brilliant for us, in fairness. Rodriguez was brilliant for us. Like, people saying Rodriguez didn't play that many games. He still played 30 games last year.
He was brilliant, I thought he was really good.
Yeah, and who else did we bring in? I can't remember the fourth player we brought in, but Decore.
I thought Decore in midfield was a proper engine. Yeah,
he's so brilliant. Good. So like that was the kind of one summer transfer window where we kind of said, right, we're going in the right direction now.
Yeah,
but we're still missing so many pieces of the puzzle. Our whole right hand side. Like if you watch the first 5 games, like you said last year, that Everton won, all of our goals came from Rodriguez getting the ball in the midfield, spraying out to Digne whipping it into DCL and scoring.
Yeah.
And then all the teams noticed that, they figured it out, and then they started attacking us down our right hand side, and then that was it, game over.
Yeah, there's no balance on your right hand side at all.
Zero balance.
It gives you any sort of, they can strike fear into teams. There's no balance.
No.
Some of the players in your team as well, I don't particularly have confidence in. I'm probably going to get slaughtered for this, but I don't rate Richarlison. I say that with all due respect, because I know like 50 million was a bit. He can't control that, but I don't think he's particularly good enough for Everton. I think, especially as a number 9, where you expect him to be, I think Calvert-Lewin's already surpassed him.
Mm.
But
do you know what I think it is though? I think
you could play him as a wing option, but I don't particularly think he's that good.
Everton aren't good enough for Richarlison, probably.
Yeah,
another thing could be. Yeah,
I think if you watch Richarlison playing for Brazil, he's a different animal, because he's surrounded by top class players. So if like you say, with the balance, you have Digne and Richarlison on the left hand side, and there's nothing on the right hand side. But if all of our players going to Richarlison, and he's getting kicked left, right, and centre, it's not going to help him in the long run. So he spends most of his time on the floor because he's getting kicked all the time, and he's running the socks off.
Unfortunately,
If you watch it a lot all the time, Everton get the ball from defence, give it to Richarlison, and they don't know what to do, because
they just stand still, don't they?
Especially because of how fast he is, you would expect runners to be around him, but it's not there. Like they don't seem interested. Like, they could do something with him. They might even switch to a front 2 under Benitez. He's done that before at numerous clubs. He's done a front 2.
So somehow it worked. So I can imagine it working at Everton. He managed it with Dwight Gale and Jose Perez. So I imagine.
I wouldn't be surprised if he drops wingers and decides to play a diamond midfield, and he plays Rodriguez as a number 10, which is by far his best position. He could end up doing that. I don't know what he's going to do, but he needs to get the best. I don't know if Gomez is the best in terms of playmaking. I think they need something about that. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's a good player, but I don't think he's particularly great. I think you need something more as a playmaker, because you've got 2 good engines in terms of Allen and Decore.
Chelsea Fan TV, an interesting comment here, says, I can safely say 2012-2013 for Chelsea was amongst the most dull with Rafa being here, albeit he won his Europa League. Is that, are you got a fear about sort of playing dull football, or are you just going to be quite happy next year, Matt, to be more solid? Because one thing we know with Rafa's teams is they're defensively solid. Like, you kept that Newcastle team in the league. They don't concede goals, and they are good at home. Like, they don't. You won't lose as many games playing a Rafa style as you will sort of Ancelotti style.
Yeah, well, Rafa said if you keep a clean sheet, you don't lose the game. So that's his mentality towards it. In terms of playing dull football, we've been playing dull football for the last 10 years. So it doesn't necessarily change anything. He's not going to go backwards in that sense. So, I mean, if Rafa can finish 10th next year and improve our home form, because I think we only won 6 games last year at home or something, that was ridiculous. It was our worst home. It was our worst home form in like something like 60 years or something like that. So all Rafa needs to do, in my opinion, all Rafa needs to do next year is, like you say, solid up the back. I think if they back him a little bit, I don't think they're going to go mad this summer. I think if we get Dumfries in on the right and maybe get a bit more spark in the midfield to help out Rodriguez, if we keep Rodriguez, that is. I think if he finishes maybe like a comfortable top 8, not looking over his shoulder, I think Everton fans have to be happy with that, because there's no way, like when Carlo Ancelotti came in, we expected top 4, and because of who he was. And no, I never said that myself, because I was like, I'd be happy with top 7, and I said 7th from the start.
Yeah.
And we were only 1 win away from finishing 7th. I know we finished 10th, but we were only 1 win away from it. But the football towards the end of the season was absolutely pathetic. And it was
he may end up being the best thing he's done in years. Obviously, Carlo Ancelotti is a manager I absolutely adore, but it clearly didn't work at Everton. But Benitez is like, he likes these sort of clubs, like in terms of what he's done, like where he can test himself and show he's good. I think it might work. You're definitely going to be better defensively, I think, but it's what you'll get from a goal scoring position. Like, we'll see what he does, but there are some holes in that squad. I think if you back him to a degree, you could get something. It's just, will the owners actually spend it in the right areas? That's the only concern, I suppose, that you would have.
So, I don't know. I think he's interested in keeping Moyes Keane as well, which is interesting. So
I hope you keep him.
The only problem with that is that you have a player that doesn't want to be there again. I mean, he was in PSG's shirt launch. He said in one of his Instagram posts, "See you next year, Paris." So, do you know what I mean? Like he may have fell out with Carlo Ancelotti last year, so maybe Rafa can change his mind to stay. But I think if PSG come in with 45 million for him, he's gone. So there's money to spend, So
it's a shame, really, because he was phenomenal at Juventus before you guys got him.
He didn't get a chance.
He didn't get a chance at Everton. It was written off for him once Big Dunk sort of brought him on and took him off, wasn't it? That was that sums up his sort of time at Everton, and obviously no one could ever question sort of Duncan Ferguson's love for Everton. He clearly thought it was the right thing. He wasn't doing it just for a laugh. He clearly thought it was the right thing to do, but that takes, especially being so young, like it's going to take such a knock on his confidence.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But that's scenario. Aston, coming at you from, obviously, because I asked Matt earlier on from an Everton fan's perspective, how do they feel about Villa? From a Villa fan's perspective, what do you think sort of about Everton, particularly over the last couple of seasons and moving into this season, in terms of where they can go, like under Rafa? Do you think they've got a real shot at just sort of solidifying themselves in that sort of upper mid-table and then pushing on, or do you think they could still struggle next year?
Well, if you asked me like last year, I was thinking they're a threat to us for European football. And now Ancelotti's gone, I'm thinking, it's an unknown. I don't know how good he's going to do, but it's definitely an unknown. They could drop back now. They've got a few aging players. Well, Coleman's coming to the end.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in terms of, like, obviously you said that they could have caught you and things like that. Do you think it's just a case of having a few different a few new signings, and they'll probably be back up at that level? Because I'm with you, when they brought in Ancelotti, I was like, right, okay, so it really should be Everton and Villa sort of level, and I would have probably put Leicester in that bracket, because I still don't rate that Leicester team in big games where it matters, like in big moments when it matters. But certainly when Everton brought in Carlo last year, I was thinking, right, this is going to be it. This is going to be Everton trying to get to the top, or really trying to push forward. So do you think it's just a case of a few different signings, or do you think there might be something actually in terms of at the club higher up that's causing this sort of issue? Like Matt said, it's been sort of 8, 9, 10 years now since the much better football at Goodison.
I'm not sure about higher up, but I don't think they're far away. I think we're around level, because if you look last year, we're looking back at the squad, and when we were struggling, we were looking at Everton and thinking, their squad depth's better than ours, even though theirs might not be hugely better. We're looking at our bench and thinking they've got a better bench. So that's what let us down. we need to build that squad depth so they can provide a few better first team players. I think they could be well up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that we always talk about when teams are trying to break through. Like we said earlier, like it's not just the quality; you need more than the 11 to sort of get to that level. Like there's like to be that top 6, top 8 even now. You've got to have quality and quality in your depth as well. If you are in the comments, there's loads of people in the comments. If you are in the comments, drop where you think Everton are going to finish. We sort of saw in the comments earlier on that Aston Villa finished around 8th, 9th. So drop in the comments where you think Everton are going to finish next season. I'll ask Matt as well. Matt, where do you see the team finishing next season? I know it's early because no business has been done and things.
At the moment, if Rafa's in charge with the same squad, and if James Rodriguez leaves and we don't replace him, then I can see Everton probably finishing 10th or 11th again.
So, Reece?
Sort of the same inkling. I think they'll finish around 9th.
Fair. Aston?
Yeah, I think around 9th. I don't think they'll be that far.
With the squad at the moment, I agree with that. But if they improve the squad, like if they bring in Dumfries and they bring in like a tricky midfielder, then I can see us finishing 7th or 8th.
Yeah, Keane says 7th. Keane reckons 7th. He has faith in Rafa Benitez. And I think it'll be interesting. Like, obviously, a lot of fans take to Rafa. It looks like he obviously built up sort of a cult following at Newcastle. Hopefully, we'll probably do this. You think he's going to do the same at Everton? And from what I read, I've read a couple of articles and things like that. It seems to be sort of Rafa's way or the highway. So that'll really sort of separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of your players. Who's willing to work hard for him? Paul,
do you know what I think it is? Do you know what I think it is as well? Sorry for cutting across.
No, it's fine.
I think Everton have had managers that have either not been good enough or didn't want to be there in Carlo.
Yeah.
So we have a manager in now who loves Liverpool as a city. He lives in Liverpool. I know these aren't reasons to have him as a manager, but
but it helps.
It'll be a reason for him to stick around and want to do the best job that he can do, because he wants to stay in that job because it's literally on his doorstep. So why wouldn't he want to do the best? Like if he this is probably going to be his last big job, and if he doesn't do a good job here, he's not going to get a decent job anywhere else unless he goes back to China. So he needs to do well in this job. And I think the way it is, Everton have a new stadium coming up in 3 years' time. If he can solidify
as well,
if he can solidify the squad, get them like a comfortable top 8 team, so that if a decent manager does come in 3 or 4 years' time, with a bit of pulling power, then we can say, right, Messi, come over here for a few I'm playing Brandy Moore Doc, but now that kind of way. If we can attract a decent squad and get a young decent squad in, like Aston said, our squad is kind of aging now with the likes of Gylfi Sigurdsson and Coleman and stuff like that getting on. But
yeah,
I mean, we have a decent squad. We just need a bit of squad depth. Like we had so many injuries last year that we had 15, 16, 17-year-olds with 4 goalkeepers on the bench at one stage.
Yeah.
So it's not
the one good thing that goes in Rafa's favour is he's particularly good at managing average players.
Yeah.
He gets
Ayos Perez, exactly.
Yeah.
Ayos Perez, Dwight Gale,
Isaac Hayden.
Exactly, like these sort of average players.
Newcastle.
He gets them to do a job.
Newcastle, yeah.
Exactly. So imagine what he can do with the average sort of talent you've got. Like, obviously, I don't rate Alex Iwobi. I don't rate him at all. But it could possibly do something with him. It could make him a little bit more effective. Although, to be fair, that'd be a pipe dream.
Yeah.
It'll give Seamus Coleman a bit more of an opportunity to get more defensive as well, instead of having him rely on like constantly exerting too much energy. As a 33-year-old, you don't want a fullback like that to just constantly be up and down. You can save that for Lucadinho, who is a fantastic attacking fullback. Let him do the job, and just let Coleman defend with the back, like with the 2 centre backs. No problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're going to change gear again to talk about, for my money, one of the worst teams in the league, Crystal Palace. Like the way that their club is run is sort of proved in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and probably you're going to say the last year. The fact that they've let 20 plus playing staff and managing staff contracts run down. They're all gone. They've just brought in Patrick Vieira, is virtually unproven in top level management. And yeah, I just think Villa are one of the dullest sides in the Premier League. They have no want to attack and to score goals against any team that's better than them. And the teams that are worse than them, they struggle to score goals. And they don't look like at any point in time that they've improved in the last 3 years. They look like they've stayed the exact same, and I don't know how they're still in the league. I'm going to quickly go to Reese and ask him a little bit. What do you think of the Patrick Vieira signing? Do you think it shows intent? Do you think it shows desperation? For me, it strikes of desperation. But we'll get a name rather than sort of anyone of any quality. We have lost Matt, but I will add him back in. I'm going to go to Reese and ask him that question. I'm also going to run and get my laptop charger before it dies. So Reese, what do you think of Rafa?
In all respect, I don't understand this choice at all. It makes no sense to me. Like, he's managed Nice in Ligue 1. I believe he got them 4th. Not particularly playing good football. He went to the MLS. Not particularly impressive. His style of football isn't particularly great. He doesn't strike as a type of manager that I think is actually going to benefit Crystal Palace long term. I don't think he's going to last, and it's a shame really, because obviously he wants to prove he can do a job in the league. I don't think he will. I don't think he will last till Christmas. I think the way it's going to go, I think Patrick Vieira will be gone by Christmas, and I'm not saying that because I want him to get sacked. I don't want any new manager to get sacked, but I don't see him lasting. I think he's gone into a horrible position anyway because of, as Greg mentioned, he's spot on. They let go of 20 players, and that's ridiculous. A club like Crystal Palace, they shouldn't be getting rid of 20 odd players. Some of them were first team players as well. To me, that strikes as, to say it loosely, a what the fuck moment. I don't see them progressing. I don't see Vieira staying in the job. He's a Premier League legend for Arsenal, and I'll give him that. Like, he was a fantastic midfielder, but as a manager, the only success he's ever got is finishing 4th with Nice, and it was particularly average. He's getting sacked by Christmas, and Crystal Palace are going to finish 16th in the league.
I think that's generous. I honestly think they'll get relegated, and I think they could go down with like less than 20 points. Like, I think they're awful. Matt, coming to you, what's your opinion on Crystal Palace? Sort of, there's definitely probably quite an insult to sort of group Palace and Wolves with Everton and Villa, I would say. So, what's your opinion on Palace?
If you listen to our podcast, I have an absolute hate relationship with Crystal Palace. I absolutely despise them. For over the last 4 or 5 years, it's just they've kind of seemed to just have the same squad. They don't seem to improve it. They brought in Eze, who unfortunately picked up that really bad injury. God love him. I think he's going to be out for like 6 to 9 months, and he was kind of the only beacon of light they had. I think Zaha's just destined to be there till he's about 40 years of age. I think
an average player for an average.
Yeah, well, like I think Zaha. Everton keep getting linked with Zaha, and I don't understand it. I think he's a good player. He's a decent Premier League player, but he'd be a decent signing for somebody like Wolves. Actually, in fairness,
if he was half as good as a player as he thought he was, he'd be amazing. Because he thinks he's
exactly,
class.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell by the way he carries, he thinks he's brilliant, and he's just not.
Yeah, he thinks he's the bee's knees, but he's. Yeah, I agree. He is not worth the. He's not worth it at all.
I don't know if it's a case of if he was put in a decent team, would he be better than he is? And the same could be said for Richarlison at Everton. I think if for example, if you put Zaha in Man City's team, how good would he be? Would he, like, in fairness to him, he still get pink, like, pops up with 15 goal contributions a year.
Yeah.
So it is for Palace, like, so if it wasn't for him, they would have been relegated 2 or 3 years ago. But I do think, coming back to your point, my mic phased out there for a couple of minutes, so I didn't really hear what you guys said a second ago. But I heard that you were talking about Patrick Vieira. I think it's a good appointment for a club like Palace at the moment, who are in that kind of change. They're going to lose a lot of players. He's going to have to deal with bringing maybe a couple of players through the ranks. I think they just signed a decent enough player from the Championship. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name. I'm trying to remember.
But he's. I think he was like third or fourth. Yeah, I think he's like third or fourth in the list of goal contributions last year. So that's a decent signing for Palace.
And I think they're just about to sign Mark
Guehi,
Guehi,
I don't know how you pronounce that,
from Chelsea. He was at Swansea last year. He was a solid centre half. So they are trying to obviously bring through this younger crop of players. But like, it just seems like when I look at their team, it just seems all of them are 35 and all of them have been there for a decade. Like I'm just looking at some of the players are being linked with. Like they're linked with Lookman and they're linked with Mateus Pereira. Like they're looking to attract these young players, but if you were Mateus Pereira, would you go there?
If they got Lookman and Pereira in, then they'd have a chance of staying up. Like the only good thing that Palace have going for them, and this is God's honest truth, is that they're a London club.
Yeah,
and that's it.
People want to live in London.
People want to live in London. They want to live there, and if they feel as if they go from Crystal Palace, they could sign for Chelsea or Arsenal or Spurs. They don't have to sell their house, move home, or like that. That's the only thing that Palace have going for them.
It's just up the road.
Yeah, but I think Vieira is a good signing for them. I think he's going to do okay for them. They're in transition, Palace, so we'll see how they go.
I'll let you finish there, Matt. Sorry, but there's something I was going to say in the back.
If they bring in like somebody like Lookman on loan, even for the season to stabilise them, I think they might finish probably maybe 16th. Sounds about right.
They've got a chance. I was just going to say on the back of that, he's already put the comment in. This genuinely feels like it genuinely feels like Frank de Boer. He was a good manager at Ajax, won 4 league titles in a row, went into Milan, massively horrible. Ends up at Crystal Palace and he's gone within 7 games, didn't win a single game. Vieira's going to have a pre-season, but is he actually going to do anything? I don't know. I'm genuinely worried for him. I think he's going to be one of the first managers to get sacked. One of them.
I would say the only reason he won't be first is because Watford are in the league.
Yeah, he's definitely getting sacked first.
It'll be a Tuesday at one point, and they'll have to get rid of him.
It'll be like Tuesday, November 24th, if that's the actual date.
We're going to get rid of him. Why? Just about that time, isn't
it? Just one more thing on Vieira there. I think if the only thing that Vieira has in his favour is that Palace's ceiling isn't that high. If he can get them to even like 14th or 15th and playing decent football, bringing the young guys through, that's his job done. They don't have massive expectations. They're not looking to get top 10. They're not looking to get European football. Their main aim is to be solid and stay in the Premier League. And if he does that, that's his job done. Simple as that.
I think it's a miserable existence as a football club. Yeah. I couldn't imagine myself supporting a team who's won so because I get it. Like, yeah, they're the two, and Wolves we're going to talk about later on as well. They're just strike me as teams that would play the same way. Would play much better football in the league below. But because they're in that, there's we'll just kill teams. We won't play football. We'll just sit back like 8 men behind the ball, and it's just that, like, if you're a fan, like, and definitely more this year. Like, football's got to be for the fans this year. After not being in the stadiums for 18 months, how many Palace fans are going to queue up to go and watch 10 men sit behind the ball away to Brentford? Like, it's just.
That's a good point.
I think Vieira's got such an overhaul job on his hands that I think it could be in bother. Aston, coming at you, what was your sort of first thoughts on the Vieira news and sort of where Palace are? Do you agree with us, or are you a little bit more hopeful?
No, I think it's a strange one because with their turnover players and aging players, you normally need an experienced manager to do that, and to get somebody that inexperienced to try and take them, I think that's a risk. I can see them going down like yous.
Yeah,
I think that could be too much of a risk.
Yeah,
I think they could be in bother. I would think they need. I know we've talked like with the other teams, like, where do you think they could improve? But I genuinely think there's a player, like, Palace could get one of every player in the position, and that would improve every position. Like you say, Eze would probably fit into most squads, but he's injured. We'll see what Elise is like. We'll give Guehi, or whatever, however you pronounce it, sort of the benefit of the doubt that he might come in and be good. But like, I don't think Ayew's the future in terms of a striker. I think you want a striker to score goals. You don't have Jordan Ayew. I'd rather go and get Mitrovic.
Benteke.
Benteke, yeah, I forgot they've got him as well. Like, and their midfield is just. I feel like it's been McCarthy. I feel like MacArthur. Which one?
MacArthur.
Both.
Yeah, well,
They've both.
They've got both. They've got both.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I
isn't
feel like that's
MacArthur like 36 years old?
Yeah, like it's just their whole team doesn't have any like. They would generally need one of every position, and we could do a whole show on like Crystal Palace transfer targets and how they could improve their team. But it would be like FIFA career mode, where you have to just come in, give yourself financial takeover, spend 300 million, and just overhaul the whole team. But I think Palace could be in serious trouble this season. I'd like to see Vieira be successful because it's always nice to see like ex-players and things come into clubs and come into teams and do well. Like it was enjoyable. As much as I hate Chelsea, it was enjoyable to watch Chelsea that season that they had Lampard. As Arteta coming into Arsenal is exciting. Obviously, Man United have Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and things like that. It's looking like the next Liverpool manager at some point is going to be Steven Gerrard. So it's certainly going to be the way things go. And there could be some serious football superstars managing top teams, but I can't see a way out for Palace this season.
My only thing is, I don't know what their owners are like. I don't even know if the Crystal Palace owners have got a bit of wealth to them, because they don't particularly spend.
One guy,
big
I can't remember his name.
They don't particularly spend big money, and that worries me. They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to spend big.
That's it. Yeah,
Parish, thank you. They're gonna have to spend, and they're not renowned for it. If they want to keep Vieira in this league, they're gonna have to get Vieira.
They're gonna get loads of loans in. They're gonna get loads of loans.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, they have to. Because they really have to overhaul that squad, and they need to overhaul it on the cheap. Like they let, like I said, 20 plus people at the club's contracts just run down and just let them leave for nothing. Like
only one manager in my lifetime has done that and been successful, and that was Bielsa. He sacked 17 players at Leeds and he sacked 19 at Lazio, and then he quit the next day. Like the man's psychotic, but at least he gets results. This is totally different ball game for Vieira. He's at a club in no position.
Yeah, but the MLS he was at, wasn't it? Before was it the MLS?
MLS, yeah, and he was at New York City, and he was at Nice as well. He finished 4th, so at least he's been in the top 4 position. But this is a totally different ballgame. This is the Premier League. I feel for him.
Yeah, no, so that, and another manager I feel for, and I can't remember this guy's name for the life of me. The new Wolves manager, does anyone remember?
Oh, that Bruno lad.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, 1 second.
Portuguese fella.
Yeah, obviously. There was always going to be a Portuguese guy.
Bruno Lage, yeah.
Bruno Lage, yeah. So I believe he's ex Benfica. So we're talking about another team that I think will struggle horrifically next season. It's another team that I despise watching Manchester United play because we can guarantee it's going to be 0-0 or 1-0. It's Wolves. Wolves recently lost their manager to Tottenham Hotspur. Nuno Santo has left. He left before right at the end of the season, and now he's the new Tottenham manager. They've got him Bruno Lage, ex-Benfica manager now as well. You would still imagine, obviously, they're going to keep this Portuguese contingent and things rolling through. It looks like Rui Patricio's on his way out, but they're bringing in Jose Sá, who's another Portuguese goalkeeper, to come in and sort of take the reins. For me, I think Wolves, as much as it was great fun when they came up and they've got all these Portuguese players and things, I just think it's just not the way to go about football in the Premier League. I just don't think they play attractive enough football, and they're not effective enough in the final third to make it worth what they spend, because they spend a lot of money on these kids and these young Portuguese players, and they spend a lot of money on Fabio Silva.
40 million or something.
Yeah, and he's not fantastic. And as much as it's great fun. You got loads of Portuguese owners buying loads of these, it doesn't work. Personally, for me, I don't think it's something that works, and I can see Wolves being in a lot of trouble next season because, again, if you were to ask me where can they improve, I feel like there's one in every position, especially with the fact they play the back 3/5. I feel like there's one in every position. Aston, coming to you again, I feel bad grouping Wolves and Crystal Palace with Aston Villa and Everton. I've thought about it, but where do you see Wolves sort of going, and what do you think of just sort of Nuno leaving and where that leaves the club going forward?
I can only see them going backwards. Last summer, I could never understand them selling Jota and Doherty. When you got something going so well, don't need to change it. And they sold them, got replacement Semedo. He ain't been very good, and now they're selling as well. Yeah. So I don't understand when they're doing so well why you sell, but obviously they did. That's part of how they are as a club, and
Yeah.
it ain't worked out. So, but this Bruno Lage, or however you say his name, I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah.
No, I
So,
don't think anyone does.
I'm just trying to look at their signings. They've made 4 signings, but I can only see 2 of them, and that's Jose Sa and that Trincao for Barca. I can't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they did get Trincao from Barca in sort of the last week. Matt, come to you. What do you think of sort of Wolves' position, not only sort of going into this season, but where they've been going the last 2 seasons? Because I feel last season took a massive step back to the team they were in 2019.
Yeah, I think we talked about Wolves a lot. We did like a kind of an end of season awards on our podcast, and we said our most disappointing team was Wolves, and our most surprising team was West Ham. But I think, in fairness to Wolves, like Aston touched on, they lost Jota, which was a massive blow for them, and then they also lost Jimenez for the majority of the season with that head injury. So they had to like drastically change their formation. They had to drastically change the way they played football. They tried to replace Jota, and I think they kind of did at the start of the season. They weren't that bad at the start of the season, and then they got the injury to Jimenez, and like you say, the Fabio Silva, young fella, he didn't do well at all. He just seems to be lacking confidence, and I think it kind of reminds me of the Moise Kean situation at Everton. He just needs to run a game somewhere. And like Moise Kean, what a way to go to PSG and score leading 14 goals and get Champions League experience. It's a different ball game there. But I think Wolves are potentially could turn into one of those teams that just sit in between 12th and 15th place for the next couple of years.
Palace, Burnley, and Southampton.
Hopefully Jimenez comes back and he kind of get. Yeah. But I think I like Wolves kind of as a club, but I think they might be struggling a little bit financially in terms of they kind of have to balance the books. That's why they're looking to sell the likes of Patricio and stuff like that, because they spent a lot of money when they were in the Championship just to get up, and I think they've spent a good bit of money on the likes of Fabio Silva. They bought another fella in as well. Who was the fella? Was it Catone? They brought in from an Italian side and they sold straight away.
Catone,
He came back from his loan spell at Valencia, so he's back in the squad.
Yeah, so it all depends. Like it's hard to kind of gauge for all 4 teams we've talked about, really, like Wolves, Everton, Aston Villa, and Palace. They're all kind of in a bit of a transition. We're all kind of new managers. We don't know what signings are coming in. The signings could be massive. Players coming back from injury could be massive. Palace are going to struggle without Eze. It's one of those seasons, and it's the next 4 weeks are huge, and for Everton as well. Like, we're going to Florida, I think, for 2 weeks in next week, and we still haven't got a player in. Like you can't
it's not great.
Like, it's not great, and I think Wolves will always have that. It's a Jorge Mendes, the super agent fella.
Super agent,
they're always going to have that link with him, with the owners and stuff like that. So they're always going to bring in players like Semedo, players like, there's going to be a link there. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll do better than Palace. But they're not gonna be above Everton and Aston Villa, I don't think, next year. I think I can see Wolves finishing 12th, 13th next year, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I agree with you. They really are bordering on becoming one of these teams that just sort of sits and doesn't really push for anything, but also doesn't look at any threat. Like I said, joining Southampton, Burnley, and Palace. But to be fair, I think Palace are in trouble this season. I do want to answer a quick comment away from the 4 teams that we talked about. Paul asked me and Reece, obviously from a Man United perspective, but I will ask you guys as well. Do you think Pogba will stay? Personally, I think he will stay. I think the money that's being talked about means more to Pogba and Mino Raiola than where he plays his football. And sadly, that's just the way it is with Pogba. Like, I think that if he was offered, as good as it is to play in Paris and win the French League and things like that, that's brilliant. But if Man United offer him more money and to be the superstar, and he's our superstar, he's our midfield superstar. As good as Bruno, as amazing as Bruno is and has been, Pogba's the man. Pogba is he just is. He's the fulcrum of that midfield, and he's the way that Man United. He was the rubber stamp a few seasons ago, 5 seasons ago when we bought him, that we were going to try and move forward and go forward now, and I feel like he will be re-signed. I feel we'll be really aggressive and try to re-sign him. Before I come to Reece, from a Man United fans' point of view, Aston, what about yourself in terms of a Pogba situation? Can you see him staying at United, or do you think he'll go to PSG, or do you think he'll just run down his contract and sort of move freely next season?
I'm not sure. It's a hard situation because United will look to cash in if he ain't signing, but they can't risk it. They're looking embarrassment, letting him go for free, buying him back for 90 million to let him go for free again. But I think you have to. If I have to pick a player to watch outside Villa, Pogba's at the top of the list. I think he's class. Everything he does, one of the best players in the league. So
good. No, I liked you for some reason. That's good. I like that. Matt, what about yourself? What do you think on the Pogba situation? Do you think he stays? Do you think he goes?
I was going to ask you before when you asked the question. Do you think he deserves the money that's being talked? Do you think he deserves the wages?
I think if we get the Pogba that played the little spell when we were pushing and we were sitting around first in the league, if we get that Paul Pogba, if we get the Paul Pogba that played at Burnley and played at Newcastle and put in the gritty performances in the Europa League, came on and played as good as he did against AC Milan, if we get that Paul Pogba, yeah, he's worth every penny. But if we get the Paul Pogba that walks around and lazes around, no.
But just that's you've just pretty much answered my question, because if we get this player that played against Burnley and Palace, you need if somebody's going to be getting 450 grand a week, you need him to be playing like that against Arsenal, against Chelsea, against PSG in the Champions League, and he doesn't do that. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't think he deserves that type of wage. Do United have that extra option on his contract like they usually do for most players?
No, I don't believe they do. I believe that was something they brought in after Pogba came in. It was something they did after. I think the same season that Pogba came in, or no, maybe the season after, when we started bringing in like Zlatan and things like that, and Mkhitaryan and things. That was where it first started to be like doing 1 year extra optional at the end. But I don't believe Pogba's got that.
I was going to say if he does,
I think his 1 year option was last season.
Yeah, it might have been actually. It might have been triggered
at a certain time. Yeah. I was going to say if they triggered that option, I could see him leaving, because that means he has 2 years left in his contract. But I can see what Aston said as well. I think he might just play out this year, run down his contract, and leave and get big wages somewhere next year.
He easily could if he wanted to as well. Like he's the sort of player who can command the big wages because he has that sort of talent.
He'll walk into PSG's team.
He's your brand as well. Like any team, he's a brand. Like his whole demeanor, he brings money. Like whatever you pay for Paul Pogba, he makes up in shirt sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like Man United knew that when they bought him. Man United knew whatever they spent on Paul Pogba, we're making that back in shirt sales, and we're making that back on merchandise that we can label with Paul Pogba on it. We'll make it back with the Adidas deal that Paul Pogba was labelled to. Like he's everything and he's everywhere. And like you said, you might not think he's worth that money. To me, if Paul Pogba wants to play, he's the best player on the park. If Paul Pogba's got any reason in his head that he doesn't want to be there, then he's not worth it. But I believe Ole has done something in the last 18 months to turn Pogba's head away from moving. And I believe that Ole and sort of what he's trying to build, getting Sancho, I think Varane coming in, if that does happen.
That's the one for me.
If Varane comes in, that's a massive reason I'm going to stay. And then we're linked with Camavinga and things like that as well. Like, I believe all his man management is maybe good enough, or should be good enough, to convince Paul Pogba to stay, because he's that good. And he did it in December when obviously we went on an international break and Mino Raiola had something to say, and Solskjaer quashed it, and there was nothing said after that. Even at the February international break, nothing was said. And it sounded like, or what it seemed like from the outside looking in, was that Solskjaer would have had a word with Pogba, just about his demeanour, sort of obviously about Mino Raiola, but just getting his head back into that frame of being a Man United player, because he was crucial to us and obviously getting to the Europa League final. Evan says there as well, if you went to Paris, their team would be so good. Pogba left United drop a few places. I agree. And you'd love to see Pogba go just to see that PSG team. That PSG team with Pogba, Wijnaldum, and Verratti, something, whoever you want. Neymar, Mbappe, Donnarumma. They're built with serious.
Ramos.
Hakimi.
They've got they are building that. squad. Yeah, they are building it.
They are. And Reece, what about yourself from a Man United fan's point of view? We'll finish up on that point. What do you think Pogba stays, or do you think he runs down his contract?
I think he will stay. I think he is going to sign that extension, but I'm on the same mindset of yourself, where it has to be consistent to earn that money. Like, you can't just give someone that amount of money and then they do an Aubameyang, like where they have that absolute shit show.
That's what's going to happen.
I want.
No, it's not.
That will happen.
Okay, I'm now Manchester United's top earner. I am that top earner for a reason. If they get this amount of money, I have to deliver. That amount of money, realistically, he should be like, okay, now we're going to go and win something. I want that sort of attitude. I don't know what we're going to get from him. Like, it's football, that sort of money. Things can happen. I don't want him to be that type of player that just uses the club for money. Because we've seen that with Sanchez. I do not want a repeat. Yeah. I want to see him take this team by the reins and be like, wait, fuck it, we're gonna go and assault on this league. We're gonna go and assault in the Champions League. Whatever's in front of us, we're gonna take it head on and we're gonna win something. If we don't get that, then I feel like we've wasted the time. I don't want us to be that sort of team in that position where we're wasting money on a player that just doesn't want to be here. I think he wants to be here. It's just
got to show the intent.
Yeah, we've got to. He's got to lay it down. He's got to tell us what he wants. If he doesn't tell us what he wants, then we may as well take a punt. 50, 60 million, take it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't afford to lose him again on a free, because that would be absolutely shocking.
To be fair, I've got no doubt in my mind that Pogba's involved in any player that wants to come into United. Him and Bruno and Rashford. I reckon they're three players that Ole has conversations with, and Maguire, obviously, every single day. Probably had conversations with weeks out from the end of the season when they're assessing targets, asking the best players, who do you want to play with? I wouldn't be surprised if Pogba was like, yeah, Varane's contract's running down. Camavinga's available. Like, they're going to have a voice. They're going to have a say, and you've got a player like Paul Pogba in there. He's not going to bite his tongue, is he? So he's going to stand there and he's going to voice his opinion. And I reckon Varane coming has something to do with the fact that Pogba said that he wanted Varane.
It wouldn't surprise me, because he's that sort of player. Like, look at the amount of French-speaking players we have in that team. Like Eric Bailly, Amad Diallo, Martial, hot and cold at times as well. Potentially.
McTominay.
We're not going to go there. Rafa Varane potentially. Camavinga's rumoured. It's another one. These sort of players, like, you get them in. The one thing I think we can all agree on, Pogba will sign the contract if Man United goes, this is what we're actually going to deliver. Because I don't think exactly. If they just go and say, oh, we're just going to sign this and that, it'll be like, right, I'm off.
I think what you should do is the 450 grand a week you're offering Pogba. I think you should offer that to Haaland, and you have a number 9 striker for 10 years.
Yeah, but the issue with the Haaland thing, and obviously I'm going to have a show certainly near the start of the season where we talk about Chelsea, because I think Chelsea's business will pick up over the next few weeks. The way Chelsea sort of go about things, they tend to do it quickly and quietly. And I think with the Haaland situation, I don't want to sign a player whose end goal is to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona. I don't want to say, as good as he's going to be, he might be there 2 years. He's got Raiola as an agent. And I don't want to spend 170, 180 million on getting someone like Haaland, who's going to be there for 2 seasons, and then we have to sell probably for less than 180 million because he's got 2 years left on a contract. We've got to pay stupid amounts of money, and there's no guarantee that he wins. He would help us win, obviously, but there's no guarantee that he's the instant missing piece.
Yeah, and you want someone who says their ultimate dream is to play for Man United.
Man United. That was what was so key when Bruno came. That's why everyone fell in love with him. It's like, this is my dream. This is the club I want to play for. Like, okay. But Haaland's already said that, and his dad's already said that Madrid and Spain, like Madrid and Barcelona, would be hard to turn down. Yeah, so I don't want to pay a player that much money for 2 years. Yeah,
Barcelona can't afford him. Like, they just gave Messi 600 million for the next 5 years.
600 million.
They just can't afford him. Like, so, but like, I think United for the forward, this number 9 position and stuff like that. I think Martial is not good enough.
No,
like Cavani was fantastic for United. I'm not going to say a bad word about him. I think he's going to be very good for you next year as well. But he's aging as well. You can't keep bringing in these number 9s like Zlatan, Odi and Igalo, Cavani on 1 or 2 year deals. You need to get a striker who's going to be a 5 or 6 year, 30 goal a year striker, and you just haven't had that for the last since Rooney left probably.
Do you not think Greenwood would mould himself into that? Yeah. Do you not think Greenwood would mould himself into that eventually?
This season,
I don't see Greenwood scoring. I don't see Greenwood scoring 30 goals a year.
I don't think he's going to be a 30 goal season striker. But what I do see he's going to be like Rooney was. He's going to be like Rooney from like 2004 when he came into like 2010, 2011. He's going to be that link-in player, and then he's going to contribute goals, but he's also going to contribute assists. He'll let the wingers come in and let the wingers do the damage, similar to what that defensive striker up the motorway does for the Scouse lot. It's going to be like that.
I think if United let Rashford get the surgery on the shoulder, I think he might be a better player next year as well.
Yeah, but Rashford's shite through the middle. It's absolutely awful. Like he's just not the player that he is out wide through the middle.
I'm saying if they let him get his surgery, he'll be a much better player next year.
I think he has a way to get his surgery. Thankfully, he's done.
He's got his holiday first day. Like, is it just for the week or?
Yeah, 2-week holiday, and then he's away for his surgery, so he misses the first 8 games of the season. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, fantastic. We're going to leave that there. We've talked Aston Villa, we talked Everton, we talked Crystal Palace, we talked Wolves, and we talked a little bit United at the end there just because of a couple of comments. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Guys, is there anything you want to shout out? Aston, you want to shout yourself out on socials or anything like that?
Just my on my Twitter. I don't know which way. They're there.
That one. Got it.
Yeah. Perfect. Matt, you got anything to shout out?
Yeah, just we're going to be kicking back up with the podcast in about 2 weeks' time, probably about 2 or 3 weeks before the Premier League starts. We don't want to kind of do an episode now because there's nothing really happening at the moment. We were going to start up. We were going to start up last week, but the manager's situation was just mental. So we'll leave it for another 2 weeks, and then maybe have a bit of a chat about fantasy football and stuff like that as well. So it's called The Week in Football. You can find us on all the platforms: Spotify, Apple iTunes, and all that kind of stuff. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at A Week in Football as well. So.
Absolutely,
it's a bit of banter between myself, an Everton fan, and Ed, who's a diehard Liverpool fan. So,
what a shame.
It's good fun.
And Reece, anything you want to shout out?
Well, I'm actually after this show. I'm about to jump on another stream actually, so you can find me on the Rich Sports channel. So I'll be over there. But you can also find me as the official new host of the London Lowdown. I just had my first show the other day, so you can catch me there next week. I think I'm chatting to Evan next week, so that's going to be interesting from a Chelsea perspective. God help me.
Yeah, everyone's favourite.
God help me. Another blue team I absolutely despise. You can also find me on Twitter, R7UM1T3D. It's obviously it's United with some numerical form. You can also find me on Twitch, Reese_Lightning 1997 if you're a bit of gaming. But other than that, you can find me here at the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk.
Yeah, perfect. And guys, make sure you do keep tuning into the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. We have rebranded. We're not just football now. We're going to be doing WWE and UFC. We're going to be doing basketball, which is back again on Sunday to talk a little bit more about the NBA playoffs. We're, of course, going to be covering the Premier League as well. And if you've not watched last night's show with Keane and Shane and Dylan, they talk from the Cliff podcast, and they talk everything about Man United's youth team and sort of where that's going, and it's certainly looking exciting out of Lake Harrington again. But thank you very much for joining tonight, guys. Thank you to everyone that was in the comments, and we'll see you guys next week.